It's the first week of December. 2023 is almost over, and 2024 is right around the corner. So it makes sense to kind of stop and reflect on this year as well as what we want to accomplish next year. And while that is something that I'm doing, the other thing that's on my mind is what's hip hop going to sound like in 2024? What are we going to get? So we will definitely be getting music. That is for sure. I don't think music is going to go anywhere unless like someone just says no more music ever again. We're still going to be getting music, and we're still going to be getting hip hop. But a lot of the stuff that we hear in terms of radio and mainstream music and popular music is probably going to sound the same. This isn't the year that I think we're going to see a huge shift in terms of sounds. And this is not necessarily a bad thing if you enjoy the music that's coming out now. And especially because there's always a lane for the music that you like. Even if you don't necessarily like what's popular, there's still music for you. You just got to get out there and find it. And it's totally fine if you're upset that certain music is being promoted. But it also kind of falls on you to find the music and help promote it. So you can't just sit here and say, "Oh, music is terrible. I hate all the music that's out right now," and also only listen to that music and not go out and find music that you really like. That's kind of your fault, George. I don't know what the hell you're doing. Get up off your ass. Now, you don't necessarily need to promote it. I mean, that is just one thing. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You can just sit here and bitch all you want. But if you're like me, you want to promote things that you like. You share things that you like with other people. That seems like a very normal thing. Now, anyways, two major issues that I have with music and hip hop specifically right now, which I hope to see a change in, is that we keep getting long, bloated albums that really have no right being that long. And, I'm not opposed to a longer album if the music can justify it. The problem is that most albums can't justify it. They're just long to be long, it feels. Like, I understand the idea of providing as many songs as possible because, certain artists have a very wide fan base where they listen to different types of songs from a particular artist. So you have different sounds for them. But that kind of screws it up a little bit because then you have 20, 25 track album with little pockets of sounds, but not a whole cohesive project, which kind of defeats the purpose of an album, in my opinion. The other thing is, like, totally get that you want to have more songs on your album because that helps streams, but that also kind of screws you over. And that's honestly, I think, a big reason why we aren't seeing that many fan bases being built up properly. Like, we've seen so often recently that a lot of shows are being postponed or canceled. And part of that reason is because these streams are not translating to real fans. Now, a lot of these streams are bought. Like, that is, I mean, I feel like everyone knows that by now. But beyond that, like, a lot of the streams are just people throwing an album on, not really paying attention to it. So when artists go out and try to, sell a tour, they're not doing as well because these fans aren't actually listening to their music, or they don't really care about the music. They don't care about the artist beyond like one or two songs from them. And this kind of goes into another semi-related idea where artists shouldn't like shy away from being local. Like, you can totally still be a local artist and build up. This is something I saw on Twitter the other day. But, why does it have a negative connotation to be a local artist? Because by working and building locally, your fan base is going to be a lot stronger, I guess. You're building more of a community of supporters who will actually buy and listen to your music and share your music and go to your shows. I've seen that work extremely well for my friends at MacArthur Maze. They're constantly performing. I mean, they had like 3 different events in the span of a week. And, they're constantly also hosting community events. They're always doing things. And I guess it does also help that they're genuinely good people. But, there are ways to build a community and have a very solid fan base. There's ways to do it. And maybe starting locally for some artists is the way to go. I get at a certain point it doesn't really matter because you're too big. But I don't know. Maybe sometimes getting that big so quickly is not sustainable. Anyways, with that first issue out of the way, because that was also a little bit of a tangent, the other issue that I had is similar to what Lil Yachty said on his podcast regarding hip hop, and kind of a continuation of what I said in that video as well as the top of this video. A lot of music that is coming out is very samey. Everything's very similar, and we're not getting very much experimentation. But that's not just experimentation. We're getting artists who aren't necessarily making the music that they genuinely want to make. We saw that with Doja Cat earlier this year. She went out and said, like, basically that she didn't want to make all that pop music, but she did it because it would sell, and it did. And now she was like, okay, I'm going to go do the thing that I want to do. And while Scarlett may have been more along the lines of what she wanted to put out, it definitely still wasn't 100% what she wanted. There were some songs where I'm like, okay, no, I can tell that this is what she wants to do. But then other songs is like, okay, well, you still gave us a 20-something long album. Like, we don't need this many tracks from you. Like, you probably could have proved your point that you wanted to do something else from the pop side, or aside from pop, in like 12 tracks, and that would have been totally fine. But anyways, people aren't necessarily willing to experiment because of labels usually, but also because of sales. Like, when you have a fan base who likes you for a particular song or sound, they are only going to listen to you for that sound, which kind of goes back to the idea of albums having a bunch of different sorts of sounds on it to kind of cater to every audience member. But the problem with that, again, is you're further separating your audience into different sections, which, again, not a huge deal. You could just put out little EPs here and there if you wanted to. It might suit you better, but what do I know? I just talk about music. But, that is part of the reason why Drake is not going to grow up. Like, he's going to keep making the music that he wants to make right now, or he is making right now, sorry, because it sells. Like, you don't have to worry about losing out on a huge amount of fans. Like, yeah, you're going to get people who are like, oh, I want to see Drake grow up and mature, but he still sells incredibly well with the music that he's still making. And to be clear, it is totally fine to keep making the same music that you want to make, and it's also totally fine to listen to the same music that you want to listen to. Like, I love Coke Rap, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's the subject matter. Like, the subject matter is all the same. You're not getting different Coke bars necessarily. Like, you are a little bit, but it's all essentially the same topic. How many times can you hear somebody rap about Coke? Well, evidently a lot, because I still listen to it. So it's totally fine if you really just like listening to one style of music. You don't have to experiment with what you want to listen to. Continuing this discussion of experimentation, there are plenty of artists that I've found, not necessarily recently, but just in general, that are pushing and being a little more experimental in terms of sound and deliveries without being too outlandish, because, you can totally go super left field with it. But for this, we probably have Brockhampton and Odd Future to thank, because, I mean, Odd Future helped open up the door for weirdos, and then Brockhampton made, like, the whole boy group dynamic, crazy sounds thing more popular. Now, it's not to say that these artists are children of Odd Future or Brockhampton. It's just that because these groups came out, you have a little bit more light and it's more acceptable. So it's easier to get into it and more people can find you. Even though you definitely have been building on your own. Anyways, the artists and groups I'm talking about here are Paris, Texas, Group Therapy, and AG Club. And while I don't necessarily listen to them at all times, whenever I do want something that's a little bit different, I'd pull up one of their albums. I also do think that sometimes having a group is beneficial to everyone involved, because there's more hands involved with the project, and you all ideally have one goal in mind and one thing that you want to accomplish with whatever it is you're making. And in doing so, you're pushing each other and making each other better. Now, those are my issues. What do I want to hear next year? What can we expect to hear in hip-hop? Well, the first thing that I have on my list is Jay-Z. And that is only because we keep hearing rumors that he's got something coming. I mean, to be fair, Jay-Z, for the longest time in my mind, has been super secretive, very to himself, very private. And in the last year or two, we've seen him pop up a lot more. He's been on features, he's been doing interviews, he's been talking just a lot more in general. And for someone, I mean, I'm pretty introverted. I don't tend to talk too much unless I have to. So I feel like if you tend to live a private life, you don't really go out unless you have something to talk about. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see that. But who knows? We should be getting Rhapsody's album next year, because I don't think her album is coming out before the end of the year. Ninth Wonder wouldn't let her put out a Q4 album. And if you've watched that Little Brother documentary, you can kind of understand that. We are supposed to get the Carter 6 at some point, because we got the Fix Before the 6 a few months ago, or a month ago. I don't remember now. Time doesn't exist. But I thought that was going to come out this year. Maybe it'll come out next year now. JID and Metro Boomin was supposed to put out a project in the fall, but that didn't happen. So I don't know when that's going to come. I mean, Boz is putting out his album next week. So, you know, it is entirely possible that maybe he's just going to come out in the middle of or like at the end of the year. I mean, that's what Metro did last year, right? J. Cole is probably, maybe going to drop the Fall Off. I don't know. It's kind of a maybe. I really have no idea. Hopefully, I would like to see Tyler the Creator drop, because he did break his 2-year cycle. Like, he was supposed, well, not supposed to, but if you followed his career, he tends to drop every 2 years, and this was the second year after Call Me If You Get Lost, but he put out the estate sale. So I'm not sure if we're to consider that as the 2-year project, or if he's just taking an extra year. Kendrick would be cool, but I'm not holding my breath. I mean, he's probably going to take his time, but he is popping out a little bit more. He did the Hillbillies thing at Flog Gnaw with Baby Keem. He just narrated a bunch of stuff for the Melodic Blue short film. So, you know, maybe him and Keem have a project coming. I don't know. But I think overall we are in store for some good music. There's a good chance that this year might be one of those Summer 16 years, because that was a great time. But I don't know. We just gotta wait and see. That's enough rambling from me, though. Let me know in the comments below what your expectations for 2024 are, and if you have any other things that you want to see change, like I do, because, you know, apparently all I think about is the negatives. But anyways, while you're down there, like and subscribe to see more content and rambling like this. I'm going to put out a 2023 recap sometime soon, and then eventually I'll put out my top albums of the year. So stay tuned for that stuff. And yeah, thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.